It's Tuesday here at the watch party. Glad you guys are here. I decided not to let you guys know when I was jumping in because I'm doing a lot of chatting in the chat. You know what I'm saying? And usually I'll let you guys know when I'm diving in. But you know what? How about we shake things up a little bit? How about you don't know what I'm doing all the time? I think I get the opportunity to do that. Good to see everyone chatting up with all you guys. I didn't know how many worldwide folks are regularly in the chat. I see some familiar names, and I understand we've got what Denmark, we've got Sweden, we got Mexico, bro. That's it's lovely. Good to see. I see some British flags, Mark David 42, and Canadian flags. Which one? I don't know. Maybe you're in both places. Maybe you commute. I don't know. It's an amazing, a new technology we have with transportation these days. But we've got a lot happening, as usual. Similar stories that have been happening, but developments as they come on. I think it's telling the number of lies that this administration is willing to tell, but also what's frustrating, and I probably figure it's happening right now. Maybe it's at noon Eastern when Caroline Levitt steps out and has her press conference, but she definitely steps all on my toes for this stream. And it seems like lately, I mean, it's never really been slow, but like every day, this lady comes forward and has some crazy new things to say, some more bad answers to give. She's probably doing that just, like right now. So uh, I may jump on that again tomorrow, as it is what it is that she's doing lately. But I want to go to what she did yesterday. I want to go to this damage control that the administration is pushing forward as of yesterday. It's pretty amazing. I always say that Donald Trump is a huge con artist and a liar, but the thing is that uh, I don't. He's not even that good at it. And apparently, everyone that he hires is just as bad at as he is too. Here's Caroline Levitt trying to clean up this whole mess with Pete Hegseth and his, those war crimes.
I have a statement to read for you here. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. I have a statement to read for you.
In the latest saga of this administration lying about what is it they've been doing and what they will continue to do. Caroline Levitt just threw this guy under the bus. Admiral Frank Bradley, reading from a statement prepared, I suppose, by this administration about the next lie that she's supposed to tell. So I remember that this story has been shifting. The blame has been shifting now, but before that, the existence of this whole thing has been shifting. So I think it's pretty obvious that enough reporters are in the room that are still reputable will ask her some follow-up questions. Let's go to the first of those and see if you find a different answer.
So much of the concern from Democrats and Republicans is focused on the survivors. Why won't the administration either confirm or deny or reveal whether or not there were survivors after that initial first strike? And what imminent threat would two survivors pose who were clinging presumably to the wreckage of that boat?
Again, as I said, I think you guys are sort of not listening fully to the statement I've provided. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was totally destroyed and the threat to the narco-terrorists, to the United States, was eliminated. And for any further questions about his thinking, I would defer you to the Department of War. I obviously wasn't in the room for these.
Just to follow up, Caroline, just so much of the
I don't know if you guys heard me correctly. I'm reading from a statement that they told me not to waver from because the walls are closing in and the lies just don't really make much sense anymore. Didn't you guys hear me? Because when the question is about why is that they didn't confirm these survivors, that is before they murdered them as well. What does that have to do with Admiral Frank Bradley that you guys are throwing under the bus? You know what? It requires another question. Let's see if she's ready for this one.
Today.
I was going to
great mind
yours. Thank you, Caroline. Sure. So just to be clear, to clarify on Jackie and Gabe, did Admiral Bradley order that second strike because there were still survivors after the initial strike?
Again, as I read for you, Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law. He directed the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat of narco-terrorists to the United States was completely eliminated.
So was the initial order from Secretary Hegseth, everyone be killed, and did that come from President Trump?
I saw that quoted in a Washington Post story. I would reject that the Secretary of War ever said that. However, the president has made it quite clear that if narco terrorists, again, are trafficking illegal drugs towards the United States, he has the authority to kill them. And that's what this administration is doing. Dan answers today.
They just make things up. Again, the questions keep getting asked and the answers keep going back to the same prepared statement about what authority they have to violate the rules of conflict, the Constitution, the normal military approach to all these things. Just because you say you have the right to break all these rules doesn't mean you just have the right to break all these rules. If I go up and steal a car and then get caught and then end up on trial, I don't get to say in front of the judge, you know what, I have the right to steal cars. That car was just sitting there looking all good and stuff. I've never driven a car that fast before. And I said, why not? I get to steal that car. I'm an American citizen, right? Just because I say things that violate the law doesn't mean that it doesn't violate the law anymore. Hey, check this out. This is the fourth time.
Following from Gabe's question, you said that the follow-up strike was lawful. What law is it that allows no survivors?
The strike conducted on September 2nd was conducted in self-defense to protect Americans in vital United States interests. The strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict.
And then on this pardon for the Honduran president, following from
they went on to more things that they're fucking up too. So which law is that? Under the law. Under the law is where he can just go and then call for strikes. Now, since they keep reading this same statement, and since we've already heard Pete Hegseth from the beginning first say that this never even happened, fake news, remember that? Now we've shifted to blaming this particular Admiral Frank Bradley. I wonder how Frank Bradley's feeling today, especially when it comes to following these orders from Pete Hegseth and then getting thrown under the bus, but then at the same time, somehow claiming that he followed all lawful procedures and processes that, rogue fascist administrations would be telling him to follow. Here's the Department of War. He says, let's make one thing crystal clear. Just because he said crystal clear, that means it's really going to be good. Admiral Mitch Bradley. Mitch, is it Mitch or is it Frank? I got to look it up because it's the first time I've seen him say Mitch. Sorry. Admiral Mitch Bradley is an American hero, a true professional, and has my 100% support. I stand by him in the combat decisions he has made on the September 2nd mission and all others since. America is fortunate to have such men protecting us. When this Deputy Department of War says that we have the back of our warriors, we mean it, damn it. A presentation administration following behind this presentation president does nothing but boast, talk loudly, and then make declarations with terms like crystal clear and know this, we mean it when we say it. Stupid little phrases like that to make someone, I guess, believe the bullshit that they keep tossing around. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me give you a second before I move on to what is Pete Hegseth then said as well. Is it Admiral Frank Bradley? Oh, it's Frank Mitch Bradley. Oh my God, it's all of it. I guess they're all right. Okay. So Pete Hegseth here is talking about how he's backing up Admiral Bradley. He's backing him up. That is at the same time kicking his ass under the bus. This is, I think, a really clear indication of who this Pete Hegseth and this entire administration is. We see what they're doing. We see the statement is very tightly wound up and written in a certain way so that only Caroline Leavitt will say those things. Don't go outside of the statement. So while Pete Hegseth is talking about how he backs up his guy, this is a visual version of him talking trash to people on this, I guess it's flight deck, this aircraft carrier or so, about how much he supports them.
Happy Thanksgiving from me, the Secretary of War. Happy Thanksgiving from the President of the United States. Happy Thanksgiving from a grateful nation. I know all of you saw some of the news yesterday of 2 National Guardsmen targeted, ambushed in Washington, D.C. And they are a reminder, like you, of the bravery and the selflessness of Americans who put it all on the line in the prime of their life to do dangerous things on behalf of the American people, many of which they'll never meet, whether it's in our nation's capital, walking patrol, or whether it's in our nation's hemisphere, out at sea, interdicting cartels, defending the American people. We are grateful for you.
Pete Hegseth went on to start spinning around and talking to the staff and the folks on this ship and how much he's grateful for them. Well, at the same time, throwing these guys under the bus. I think enough of these folks can recognize a fake ass when they see one. They see someone who's constantly acting. He totally pulled out his Fox News, Fox and Friends anchor persona every time he speaks because he thinks there's some kind of like charisma or some kind of like likability about his face when there's none at all. But he thinks this is something that's going to get them off the hook. I just want to say congratulations and thank you. It doesn't really land all that well. But also think again about all of these service members, specifically now Admiral Bradley. Does Admiral Bradley feel protected by these guys? Does Admiral Bradley feel like maybe he should have, I know it happened before the video came out, but maybe heed those warnings from those 6 Democrats who were talking about not following unlawful orders. And when you follow unlawful orders, it's actually your duty to not follow those unlawful orders. And hair got pulled out and asked, wait, what unlawful orders are we talking about? We're talking about those unlawful orders that are being exposed right now, like 4 or 5 days after that video came out and the hair pulling all happened. We're seeing what those unlawful orders are that they kept saying, show them to me. Well, why don't you go ahead and show them to me? Since we're talking about the law, here's Ryan Goodman, a former general counsel in the Department of Defense. So he knows a couple things about law and order and the way that things are supposed to be done legally in the Department of Defense.
So it's pretty clear what Hegseth is saying. It's not me, it's him. How do you see this playing out?
I don't see it playing out well for Secretary Hegseth. Worst case scenario is what the Washington Post has reported and what CNN has reported, which is that Secretary Hegseth is the one who told Admiral Bradley that he wanted to ensure that there would be no survivors. That's the worst case scenario for him. The best case scenario for him is that he gave some instruction to Admiral Bradley, who then interpreted to mean the very same thing.
Right.
That would also hold Secretary Hegseth responsible. The U.S. military is, in fact,
well, if
throwing
he
people
said
out.
no survivors and there's a second strike, then that would be following his command, would it not?
It'd be following his command, and that command would be patently unlawful. It is the textbook example that the Department of Defense Law of War Manual gives for when somebody should refuse a clearly illegal order. The very example they give is firing on shipwrecked individuals.
It's almost like all those things that people who were protecting these guys and their unlawful bombings of people in the Caribbean on ships, boats, I'm sorry. It's almost like the people that recognized that understood how unlawful these things were. But instead, we had a debate over whether or not murdering people with absolutely zero due process was lawful or not. And according to Ryan Goodman, there's 2 bad scenarios for Pete Hegseth. Either you completely and directly asked for this by saying kill everyone, which is what's being reported, or you said, yeah, make sure it's done. And then Admiral Bradley took the baton from there and killed everyone and decided to have a second tap strike on these folks that were floating out in the water, half dead. Either way, it lands on Hegseth's desk. But these guys are really bad at having personal responsibility for their actions, facing any consequences for the things that they've done. So, I mean, why would they think that they're going to face any consequences when they've never faced, like any consequences for anything? So maybe as this whole thing falls apart right in front of us, and we're looking at Hegseth with his probably the 12th to 15th corrupt violating thing that he's been doing. We just heard about Signalgate and the rest of these other few things. So now that this is happening, I feel like the folks who usually back him up aren't really here to back him up anymore. One of those folks is Britt Hume, old guy over on Fox News. He responded to Pete Hegseth, who had talked about this backing up of Admiral Bradley. And he said, Britt Hume said this, how to point the finger at someone while pretending to support them. That's a Fox News guy. I assume that's a Fox News guy who had some interactions with Pete Hegseth and knows him well enough to be able to come forward and say, Pete, stop it. Because that's exactly what it looks like. It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it is. It's blaming someone else, as Donald Trump and this administration has always done. What kind of cowardly folks who run the country are willing to continue to turn around and put someone else in front of them to shield themselves from any kind of responsibility for things that they literally have been boasting about? Who wants to follow such weak, minuscule individuals? These are the worst people in the country, like the most cowardly, fearful, but also violent and bloodthirsty people in the country. What's the good qualities about these folks? You know what actually happens? It attracts the kind of people that celebrate the things that they're doing and request more of it. One of those folks is Megyn Kelly.
I'm really not that into it, nor do I really care that we're killing the drug boat guys trying to kill my kids and yours right now by bringing their fentanyl to the United States to try to get our kids when they go to college with, some drug in some moment of weakness where they think they're taking a Xanax, like what happened to poor Eric Bowling's child, and instead it's laced with fentanyl. So I really do kind of not only want to see them killed in the water, whether they're on the boat or in the water, but I'd really like to see them suffer. I would like Trump and Hegseth to make it last a long time so that they lose a limb and bleed out a little. Like, I'm really having a difficult time ginning up sympathy for these guys who 10 seconds earlier almost got taken out by the initial bomb, but because they managed to get ejected, a little too soon, had to be taken out in the water. I realize legally it may make a difference, but truly, Mark, this is a tough case to really gin up the sympathies of the American people.
Yeah, like I said, I share the premise that you just raised, because I think it's important that we do something to keep our porous border from being flooded with drugs that are killing our people. So if this is in service of that, I think it's something that should be considered.
And Hegseth says they did have sign off from lawyers at the top of the DOJ and the military system on these strikes, though his memo's a little ambiguous on what about the question of the two swimming in the water. In any event, I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad they're dead.
Well, there that is. If anybody else had said that MAGA is all about bloodthirst and wanting to kill people and having absolutely zero due process, as a matter of fact, has fantasies like Megyn Kelly's having there about murdering more folks and thinking about their legs being blown off and then maybe they bleed out a little bit, maybe purposely torture them on top of these war crimes of already doing that. If anybody else had said that that's what these folks are about, they'd be like, look at all these nasty liberals talking trash about us. Look at these people pushing characterizations on us that don't exist. We're God-fearing people. Does that sound like a God-fearing person to you? Does that sound like someone who values life? No. The whole thing here is to appease and appeal to the biggest piece of shit we've ever had in the White House. And in order to do that, you have to be a bigger and bigger piece of shit every day. Megyn Kelly's headed down this path, and she's not headed down, she's way down this path already. And I guess she's got so upset about never having an opportunity for those nationally broadcast talk shows that she got fired from. She's just on some warpath to be the worst human being possible. Don't forget, she also said the Epstein stuff and how she doesn't really care about that. And also that, maybe a 13, 14-year-old girl, it's not so bad, but as long as they're not 6 or 7, then it's fine that that these guys, along with potentially all of these rich and powerful people, including the president of the United States, it's all good. It's okay that they're assaulting, raping, and trafficking girls. That's who Megyn Kelly is. Maybe it's who Megyn Kelly has always been. Or maybe Donald Trump just broke her when he talked about her bleeding out of wherever. You guys remember all that stuff? This is the same person. What a disgusting human being. So if someone else says, let's go into Megyn Kelly's neighborhood and blow people up and make sure that they bleed out in their houses, do you think they'd be like, well, that's an opinion. You get to just have their opinion. Again, who cares what Megyn Kelly really believes? But honestly, the big part of that is, I think it's worth saying, that's how narratives and normalizations change for the amount of, murderous material we're willing to accept. Look what's happening overseas. Look what's happening in Gaza. Look at the Israeli military killing all these folks, and we watch it happen in front of our faces. We're seeing children being dismantled, pieces of body parts, and we're just like, well, they shouldn't have been there. That's what they're trying to normalize here. And it's going to keep spreading to more and more people that don't agree with the fascists, because fascists are liars. So, sorry, small tangent. A reporter caught up with Senator Mike Rounds. He's a Republican. He was also asked about what they feel about this whole thing falling apart in front of all their faces. Because, you know, once their asses start catching a couple flames, they don't have much to say in support.
We ask you quickly for your take on this Venezuelan Caribbean boat strike. Are you confident in Secretary Hegseth's leadership right now?
The question is it'll be based on the facts as we find them out. We're going to have some discussions within the committee, but until such time as we know the full facts, we won't be making comments on it.
Well, you know, when it's not just a full-throated defense without really knowing everything what's happening, once Republicans start saying, well, let's get the facts first before I say the obvious that these guys shouldn't have been doing this stuff, because I definitely don't want to be on camera saying that I'm all on board for this, because, you know, these are fucking war crimes. Let's stop acting like this is something else, because they're going to keep trying to push this narrative that it isn't. Here's what John Thune said, the Republican leader in the Senate. Andrew Desiderio, he said he asked about Hegseth leadership of DOD. Thune said, I don't have, at this point, I guess, an evaluation of the secretary. Others can make those evaluations. And then John Thune added that what matters is whether the country is safer, and under President Trump's leadership, that's the case. What measurement do they have that the country is safer under Donald Trump? Donald Trump saying so. What kind of measurement do they have that that what they're doing with blowing up all these boats has anything to do with stopping narco terrorists? Donald Trump saying so. And again, as we're seeing right now, they're liars. Like we keep saying this, they're liars. Since they've been exposed as liars so many times, why believe him saying that they're blowing up these boats and they're stopping narco terrorists, or that America is safer because of their actions? Why believe any of it? You know, remember, they're liars. Here's Roger Wicker, who I believe is one of the Senate Republicans who's part of trying to get this investigation going. Senate Armed Services Chair Roger Wicker also says that he's spoken with Hegseth about the follow-up strike in the Caribbean. Here's a quote. I think it's best that we get our classified briefings so that we'll have the ground truth and also the documents and video. Not sure if they want to see video. I mean, considering the story keeps on changing. If the story keeps changing, when the video comes out, one of the things that they said has to be a lie, because they've said two opposite things. Here's another Republican. I want to give you guys the full list. Here, Rand Paul, Burgess Everett, said that Rand Paul was really fired up. Here's a quote from him. Yesterday, Rand Paul said that they said, absolutely, Pete says he didn't do it. And then today, they admit that he did it. You think there would be some ramifications. Was he incompetent enough not to know that it happened? Or was he lying yesterday? These are really good questions, Rand. Are we going to do something about it? I mean, I know we started how the investigation is going to be asking them whether or not they did the things that we saw that they've been lying about doing before they then admitted that the Washington Post article is what it is that they're admitting to doing after saying that it wasn't true. I feel like Jake Tapper is fed up as well, too. I'm going to go through all the folks that I'm surprised are actually fed up with this whole thing, because this has been talked about pretty consistently, and finally people are seeing the reality. This is what I was mentioning, what I think he says pretty clearly.
This is what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said about that earlier today.
Does the administration deny that that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Gabe.
To clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
Now, please note, the Trump administration went from the Pentagon spokesman claiming, quote, the entire narrative is false. These people just fabricate anonymously sourced stories out of whole cloth. Fake news is the enemy of the people. He said that 2 days ago. To today, the White House confirmed the story. The Hegseth order, the September 2nd strike, the double tap. Remarkable. The White House's acknowledgement of the double tap comes after Secretary Hegseth went on X and said that the stories were, quote, fabricated, inflammatory, and derogatory, though neither he nor anyone at the Pentagon ever specified what, if anything, was inaccurate.
So is Sean Parnell going to face any consequences? Sean Parnell said that it's all fake news. He said, stop with this fake news. It's what he said. He posted about it and like raging like usual. Sean Parnell, again, he said, we told the Washington Post that this entire narrative was false yesterday. This is on the 28th. This is on Friday. These people just fabricate anonymously sourced stories out of whole cloth. Fake news is the enemy of the people. So if what you said is fake news being the enemy of the people, if it turns out, as we're seeing now, according to, again, Caroline Leavitt and everyone else in your administration, that it's actually not fake news, doesn't it make you the enemy of the people for lying about whether or not the news that we're seeing about the actions that you guys have been carrying out is actually real? Doesn't that mean everything that you talk about is fake? Doesn't it mean every time you deny or say that something is going on that we shouldn't believe you? I feel like that should be the starting point, because they lie. I mean, we literally just saw it get played out. Jake Tapper said so. I mean, so I guess we should believe it because Jake Tapper said it. He's on CNN. He doesn't have Trump derangement syndrome. The fallout continues. I wonder if Caroline Leavitt's lying right now. Maybe they flipped the third time and gone back to saying, you know, that reporting actually, now that we're cornered again, it's actually false. What losers these guys are. What incompetent, horrible liars these people are. It's about time for some impeachment proceedings to start. Let's get some action. When's Rand Paul going to start talking about eliminating this president and his corrupt administration, his murderous war criminal administration? When are these guys who are tepid and afraid to say the things out loud going to finally say it? Because it's going to start being said about you. Let's move on. How about let's move on. This story sat around maybe over the weekend. I really wanted to get to it, so I saved it and hung around a little bit longer on it. I'm gonna jump to it in a second, but if you guys are enjoying this, go ahead, like this stream, share it, tell your people about it. If you're just getting here for the first time, we do it every day at noon. So come hang with us. We have parties, and on Fridays we drink. I mean, energy drinks, but still, it's drinking, right? Let's move on to this next story. It's about Kash Patel. Did you guys hear about this? He was a point of discussion over on MS Now.
Kash Patel's acts of service. Patel has used the Justice Department's Boeing 757 and its G5 to attend UFC fights not only in Vegas but in Miami, where he was seated behind Trump. Quote, "You never saw Mueller, Wray, or Comey at UFC matches," a current agent said. Of the Bureau's previous 3 directors, Patel also used a government jet to fly to New York with the hockey great Wayne Gretzky to attend an Islanders game at which Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals broke the all-time NHL scoring record. What? Is he actually at work? I mean, is he?
The answer to Jonathan Capart's question is hell no. Kash Patel doesn't do anything. Unqualified people that don't know what they're doing, everything they do is, unqualified and, sloppy, and it's a mess. But this is really where everyone was talking. On this panel was former FBI Special Agent Christopher O'Leary. He had a couple revelations about how the FBI agents, people and staffers all feel about this new director and, how committed he is to the cause.
I'll tell you, this is a nickname that I've heard he's being called from agents within the FBI. He's the Make-A-Wish director. So he flies to see OV score the winning goal on a 757, a jet that he used for the Render Safe mission, on the ready to dismantle a nuclear bomb if it is found in the United States.
What?
He goes to UFC fights. He goes to the Boondoggle Ranch during a government shutdown for 4 days. He goes to a golfing outing in Scotland with his buddies. The G5 jet, I'll give you an example. I was in command of a unit that used it regularly for counterterrorism missions. Just one example, when Benghazi happened, I led a small team of select FBI special personnel to immediately fly out of Washington, D.C. within hours of notice to link up with a special operations unit so we could go into Benghazi. That is what those planes are intended for. They're not intended for going to see your girlfriend sing the national anthem.
But that's what he used those planes for. And as you guys heard, it's the Make-A-Wish director, which I guess is pretty derogatory for the kids that are part of the Make-A-Wish kids who get some kind of a wish at the end of potentially what they're considering. Maybe they have a terminal illness and they get a great experience. I would have chosen a different name, but I understand it. It means he gets everything that he wants. And at a moment's notice, even though, misusing funds and misusing planes. When are the conservative fiscal conservatives going to start getting upset about these things? Imagine if anyone else in any Democratic administration just flippantly used airplanes and funds and never worked the way that all of these guys act like they're actually working and doing all these things. How much hair would be pulled out? I feel like we never fully tie that knot. If we're understanding and experiencing all this embarrassing new details about the FBI director and this entire administration, the next step should always be, now what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do about it? Like, we talk about it, we get upset, then we laugh at them, and we say, look at all this unlawful behavior happening. If there's unlawful behavior happening, when are the people who have any kind of positions of power, even if you're in the minority, going to start calling for arrests, going to start calling these folks in, going to start impeaching this president? All these people are under him, and this kind of action in every department, from Pam Bondi to this guy, is all under Donald Trump. When is someone going to come after this guy? Aren't we tired of looking at this stupid game? Here's a little bit more from that former special agent.
So let's piece this together. That 1 week, he flies up to New York so he can stand on the podium and steal the spotlight from all the agents and assistant U.S. attorneys who work the gambling fraud case with the NBA. He then flies to Happy Valley, see his girlfriend sing the national anthem at a wrestling match, then carries on to Nashville, and from there goes to the Boondoggle Ranch, which couldn't be more appropriately named, during a government shutdown, spends 4 days there doing exotic hunting while government employees are not getting paid, while American citizens are not getting the services that they should get.
Why aren't more people offended by this? He's stealing people's shine, their valor, stealing valor from some of these other folks in the agency that are actually doing some kind of work. He has to make sure he's in front and center and is the centerpiece, who's like this weird, this face of the organization without actually doing anything or knowing what the hell it is that he's doing. And like I said, you can come after Kash Patel, but when you have the president of the United States get asked about it, and then, as he usually maybe would say, I don't know. I don't know anything about anything. I know nothing. All I know is that I trust him. He was asked the question.
Are you planning to replace Kash Patel as
No, he's doing a good job. Kash Patel? No, he's doing a great job, I think.
This week we saw those cases against James Comey and Letitia James tossed out. Do you still have faith in Lindsay Halligan?
Oh, she's great. I think she's great. They got out on a technicality, and you'll see what happens from here on. But if you look at the actual charges, I think anybody that looks at it very fairly would say, boy, are they guilty. So let's see what happens over the next week. The court didn't say you couldn't bring the case, re-bring the case, or appeal the case. So they have a lot of options. They're going to call the shot. I'm not calling the shot. But Lindsay's a very talented lawyer, actually.
There's a reason why Donald Trump thinks that Kash Patel's doing a great job. Well, because they've not successfully, but they've continued to cover up Epstein. I think that's primarily the main thing that they want to make sure they keep under wraps. But also, Kash Patel does everything that Donald Trump tells him to do. And like we already know, Donald Trump is a complete fucking idiot. So since he is, and Kash Patel is following behind everything that he says, of course, the complete idiot would think that the guy he's telling to do all of his idiotic moves is going to do it, and it's a great job. I mean, but specifically, they asked about Lindsay Halligan and Kash Patel and how they got these cases against James Comey and Letitia James tossed out. And it's just, everything is wonderful. We're going to get those back. I want to show you how closely related Kash Patel's dumbass is to also Donald Trump thinking that all this is just on the up and up. It's great. We just lost another case in court.
A criminal case against Director Comey was recently dismissed. What is your reaction to that?
Well, because it's pending in terms of appellate status and what we are going to do for the next steps, the judicial process can make whatever determination it wants, but we, the FBI, and our partners at the DOJ have numerous options to proceed, and we're executing on all those options. So we're not done.
Any detail available?
I would say stay tuned for right after Thanksgiving, and you'll see multiple responses, in my opinion.
A criminal.
I guess the name of that show is American Thought Leaders. with Cash fucking Patel. Thought leaders. But stay tuned till just after Thanksgiving. In his opinion, Cash Patel says more things will happen. I don't think they know anything. Like, I really don't think they know anything. And it's actually startling. It's almost, people will say that politicians and people in leadership positions don't know what they're doing. And there's always a degree of thing that they don't know because we're all human. These guys don't know anything. They know nothing. They think their worst decisions are amazing. So I guess it's just after Thanksgiving. It's the 2nd of December. It's been multiple days after Thanksgiving. I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop on what is they're going to do to recharge James Comey, even though from what I saw, that ship has sailed. Now they still have apparently some kind of a small chance still with Letitia James, but he's focusing on James Comey. I don't know. Maybe. Here's another juicy aspect of this whole thing on Cash Patel. The first thing is all the flight stuff and being called the Make-A-Wish director. Did you guys hear about this report? This 115-page report? The New York Post reported this. FBI Director Cash Patel is facing withering criticism from an alliance of active duty and retired agents and analysts. That's days after the White House denied media reports that the president is about to fire his ass. A troubling new report card on the first 6 months of Patel's leadership concludes that, quote, he's in over his head, and his deputy, Dan Bongino, the ghost of Dan Bongino, is, quote, something of a clown. That's according to this alliance, in which 2 previous reports warned about crippling DEI and politicization of the FBI during the Biden administration. The Patel-led FBI is described in this 115-page report as a rudderless ship and all fucked up. Maybe you want to bring back maybe some of those DEI red tape that you have to deal with, rather than having a rudderless ship headed by this dumbass Cash Patel, who decides to fly around on planes and take days off and hang out at his girlfriend's events. Here's some more pieces from this. Patel is described by multiple internal sources as inexperienced, with one source saying that he has neither the breadth of experience nor the bearing an FBI director needs to be successful. The guy kind of sucks. And the people that have been working there, the folks who have been there long enough to see how things operate, are talking about how bad he is at his job. I think it's pretty obvious. I feel like we were saying that before he got the job. Here's more. Another source, a self-professed Trump supporter, said that Patel is not very good and maybe insecure and lacks the requisite experience or the measured self-confidence to be FBI director. They're nailing this sumbitch from every corner, from left, right, up and down. This guy's inexperienced. He has he has some self-confidence issues. He's insecure about what he's doing. That's why he goes around and stands around and takes credit for the work that other folks have done. Hey, here's a really good anecdote about that. Pay attention to this part. Some of the heavy criticism stems from Patel's behavior in Salt Lake City after the Charlie Kirk assassination. He's accused of giving premature public remarks that potentially jeopardized the investigation, taking credit for the work of other agencies when the suspect was arrested, and for yelling and swearing at the agent in charge. Both he and Bongino were criticized for arrogance and an unfortunate obsession with social media. They're fucking 20-year-olds bouncing around on social media trying to promote themselves. One source said that they need to stop talking, stop posing, and just be professional. Another said that they're spending too much time on social media and public relations and are too often concerned with building their own personal resumes. Man, is it possible for this to get this bad? Like, they're social media darlings. They're taking selfies in front of the FBI building. They're standing in front of whatever, I guess, football wrestling match that Patel went to just flex. You see, I flew on the jet today. Here's more. It's not even done. On September 11th, the day after Kirk was assassinated, Patel flew to Provo, Utah on the FBI jet, but would not disembark from the plane without an FBI raid jacket on. That's according to Alpha 99, who is a highly respected source who has served in the FBI for multiple decades. Patel apparently did not have his own FBI raid jacket with him and refused to step from the plane without wearing one. You loser. Imagine this scene. This sumbitch is sitting on the plane. They just got to Utah. His best friend, Charlie Kirk, has just been killed, and this sorry ass won't step off the plane until he has an FBI raid jacket on so he can look as cool as possible to go talk about the lies that he's going to tell about that killing. because he got off that plane and started telling lies, about that killing. It's immediate, but he wanted to look cool. The presentation administration was in full effect. It's not just Trump and Hegseth, it's all of these idiots. Here's a little bit more. It gets worse. FBI special agents at the Salt Lake City field office, busy working on the Kirk case, had to stop and ask around to find an FBI raid jacket, a medium-sized one, a medium one that would fit this little ass. When a jacket belonging to a female agent was delivered to Patel on the plane, he complained that 2 areas on the upper sleeves did not have Velcro patches attached. I want my patches. Patel would not leave the plane until he had 2 patches to cover those areas. So members of the FBI SWAT team took patches off of their uniforms and ran those patches over to Patel at the airport. The patches were then attached to the loaner FBI raid jacket that the woman gave him, and then Patel finally disembarked from the plane. You loser. He sat on the plane with his arms crossed. I'm not going anywhere till I get my FBI raid jacket. I want to look cool. And then he gets one. The patches aren't on it. He was screaming about not having his FBI raid jacket. He's the director of the FBI, and he waits until he's on the plane to get his cosplay jacket to act like he's a tough, cool guy who's figured something out and actually has some kind of information and is a badass who's coming after all the criminals. They're all fake. Here's the last part. The director was not happy with the way the investigation was going and had earlier yelled at Special Agent in Charge Robert Bowles and directed an expletive-laden tirade over perceived blunders in the case that he probably pulled off. Bongino later called Bowles and apologized for Patel's tirade, saying that never should have happened. Alpha 99, this source, also said that Patel did a disservice to the FBI by breaking with bureau tradition and norms by taking credit for the good work by other agencies in the Kirk case, and then seemed to imply the results achieved in the investigation would not have been possible without Patel's involvement. What a little bitch. You sit on the plane, cross your arms up, kick your feet until you get your FBI jacket with the patches on them. And then afterwards, you then go screaming at folks who've actually done the work and then try and take their credit for it. Why would anyone want to work for these guys? When people resign, when people come forward as whistleblowers, when folks write books afterwards, they say, look at all these fake people and fake news, and they're just disgruntled former employees. Would you not be a disgruntled former employee if someone literally took the credit of however long you've worked on a case, how you've actually done the work, but because he stays on the plane until he gets his FBI raid jacket on? Would you love that guy? Would anybody like this piece of shit? Who would like to work for a guy who steals all your credit and then afterwards demeans and berates you and yells about the issues with the case that were probably caused by him? The incompetence is off the charts. But you know what? I mentioned Dan Bongino. Here's an email. Let's see if it pops up. Here's an email that's been revealed. Sorry, I'm trying to get it as big as possible. And this was revealed, leaked from middle of March when Dan Bongino took his position there in the FBI. It's from this woman, Leslie Beckles. I'm sorry, it's very small print. And it's an email that was forwarded to Dan Bongino, but it originally went to other folks. Chad Yarbrough and Leslie Bexell or whatever was the one who got it. It's from Shannon Perry. Here's what the email said. Leslie and Chad, good talking with each of you yesterday. IMD is happy to support. I wanted to share the below as we seek guidance from the GC on the types of redactions to apply to these documents so we can process the right way out of the gate. And then there's the redacted part, the big bar in the middle. And it says, regardless, we are here and we are ready. Looking forward to welcoming New York and NY and WFO to Westchester today. That's from Sharon. And she's from the Information Management Division. This is regarding Epstein files, showing the things that they want to go right out of the gate, looking to redact, looking to cleanse, and looking to make sure no one ever sees the light of day on. So I want to bring this up Because as we've been talking about the complete and sheer incompetence that Kash Patel has been reportedly taking part in as head of the FBI, his buddy Dan Bongino, that we haven't seen or heard from, was apparently involved in this forwarded email about covering up whatever it is that they blanked out and where they're going to have their starting point of covering things up with these Epstein files. As I said, this is the most important thing to them, is keeping this whole thing under wraps. Dan Bongino damn near disappeared after he had this little dust up with Pam Bondi and them for saying something that he didn't want them to say about shutting down the whole case, because Dan Bongino has seen some things he wished he never saw. Here's more about this whole thing with Bongino. Internal FBI emails published by Bloomberg over the weekend showed that he had been forwarded this email on March 18th, a day after he joined the Bureau, and related to guidance on the types of redactions to apply to those Epstein files. After some questioned what that said about his role in these redactions, Bongino broke his months-long silence and then talked about what it is that happened that wasn't such a big deal. Let me read you guys that email because, people are talking about this now as they're seeing it. And Bongino finally breaks, I guess, some level of silence that he had. So because he wants to relate to people, he starts his rejection of this by saying, "Folks, I entered on duty on March 17th. The emails in the chain you see forwarded to me at my request were sent before I began in my position. I wanted to review what has been done before I entered on duty. It was a priority, and as you can see, they responded immediately. I'm glad that these emails are available for your review." If Dan Bongino is so happy that these emails talking about redacting as much information as they can regarding the Epstein files, if he's so happy that they're available for everyone's review, why didn't you make them available for everyone's review? Why didn't you talk before in March 17th or 18th about how transparent this most transparent administration in history is regarding the Epstein files? Those things that they continue to cover up, those things that Donald Trump said that, why are we still talking about this? And then also trying to get Mike Johnson as much as possible to shut this whole thing down in multiple ways throughout this entire year. Now Dan Bongino's happy that you guys know that they were trying to cover all this stuff up. Here's the last bit on Dan Bongino. Bro, listen. The number of scandals coming out of this administration are so consistent. If one of these happened to anybody else, it'd be already over. We've got like 25 to 30 scandals coming out of this administration that we know of. There's many more that we don't yet. Here's more from Bongino in this situation with these emails. He didn't elaborate further on the redactions or what's in those files, as we saw. However, the internal correspondence obtained by Bloomberg's Freedom of Information files raises questions about his role in this, quote, special redaction project. Because as we know, they worked tirelessly to make sure that they redacted and hidden as much things as possible. Again, this is something that was mentioned just kind of in passing, and we moved on after we said there's overtime happening. Here's the details. The documents show the Bureau scrambling over several months in the first half of 2025 to prepare these Epstein-related records for potential release, running up almost $1 million in overtime for staff as the Trump administration dithered over what to make public. Are we happy that taxpayer money went to $1 million of overtime pay to help cover up child sex trafficking, folks, to people who raped little children? Do we think that's a good resource, a good spending of our $1 million to help rich people hide from justice? Just let's keep it real. Let's see it for what it is. Also, according to Bloomberg, FBI Director Patel then ordered roughly 1,000 agents to the Bureau's Central Records Complex in Winchester, Virginia, for crash redaction training on what was dubbed as the Epstein Transparency Project, or the Special Redaction Project. Both of those names don't really, they don't really match up all that well. But they spent time, money, and agents' experience and eyes and ears to go through this whole thing to cover up for Donald Trump. What could they have been doing instead? What work could they have been doing? Who knows? Kash Patel doesn't care. He works for Donald Trump, who's trying to cover all this stuff up. And Dan Bongino is going to have to come out of hiding at some point and explain what it is that they were up to. I mean, his explanation already was, I'm glad you guys have this information. It's overwhelming. the amount of things that these guys are doing. It's overwhelming. Then it needs to be like an entire new bureau to come forward and investigate all of the corruption and illegal activity that this administration has been taking part in. It's outrageous. It's like we got to stop being numb to this. This is crazy shit. So speaking of crazy shit, I want to give a trigger warning before I jump into this next and final little story I want to talk about. I'm going to go over a little bit, I bet. I only got 10 minutes. So be forewarned. If you guys are going to take off, I appreciate you. But hang around for the next 10 minutes. See if I grab your attention enough to hang around for a couple more minutes over it. But I do want to give this warning that I'll be listening and playing because, you know, my misery enjoys company, Stephen A. Smith. And as we know, one of the big stories lately has been this whole thing about Mark Kelly, along with 5 other Democratic elected officials talking to in this video about service members not following unlawful orders. And as you can see, one of them that followed that unlawful order is being thrown under the bus. So I can see why they did it. But Stephen A. Smith had some things to say to Mark Kelly. Stephen A. Smith is not happy.
Respectfully, Senator, what the hell are you doing? Looking into the camera and telling military men and women to ignore the commander in chief. How dare you? How dare you do that? That's right. I'm calling out. I never served in the military. That's true. I have family members who did. Some of my best friends have Marines, Air Force, Navy, Army. I haven't heard one of them, not one of them, say that was okay. How dare you do that? Is it treason? No. Is it punishable by death? It shouldn't be. So the answer is no. But you know better, Senator Kelly. You know better. How dare you do that? What are you supposed to do? You're a ranking senator. You could go to the Senate. You could go to the House. You can draw up paperwork. You can try to start articles of impeachment if you think there's something illegal. I mean, damn, it ain't like y'all haven't done it before. You impeached the man twice. Where'd that get you? Got his behind back in the White House. Had you left him alone since 2020, maybe he wouldn't be back.
Screaming A. Smith is an idiot. I mean, I think we already knew that. And maybe he should have stayed talking about basketball and football that he knows very little about as well, too, because now he decided to cross over and talk about politics and talk about the American society and our politicians. So now he's going after Mark Kelly. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you do that? He doesn't know what he's talking about. So he went on this tirade for a few minutes. I'm going to play one more part, so he's going to come in yelling again. Just want to warn you guys of what it is you might be hearing for the next minute.
And here you are again with this nonsense. How dare you do that? I'm not a military person, and I know better than that. You don't tell military men and women to ignore an order from the commander in chief. You don't do that. Is it going to amount to what Trump tried to embellish and indicate? No. But that don't make you right. How dare you do that? He's the commander-in-chief for the United States military, period. You have no business doing that. None. And by the way, the biggest reason is because what was illegal? You didn't tell us what it was. What laws? Why did I bring up A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise and Kiefer Sutherland in that sequence and Kevin Bacon? Why did I bring it up? Because the mere thought of you even implying that a military officer is engaging in some type of salacious or illegal activity is trouble in the military, not the court of laws for civilians, the military.
What is Stephen A. Smith's relationship with friends and family that have been in the military that apparently, in his conclusions, have no problem with this? What the hell does that have to do with the law? What does that have to do with violating orders. I mean, violating the law and following illegal orders. What does that have to do with any of this? Why should anybody care what Stephen A. Smith's friends and family that he claims have no issue with what it is that Trump's illegal orders have been given? Why should anybody care about that? You're just Stephen A. Smith, bro. Like this weird, like inflated sense of how everything he thinks is supposed to be what everyone takes as reality. You don't tell military men and women to ignore their commander. We already know, we know the lie, bro. Like he's a little bit late on that. We already know that they've been lying and saying that they told them to ignore lawful orders when it's obvious they've been told to ignore unlawful orders. As a matter of fact, to clear this up even better, to get even further past what these 6 lawmakers said that you shouldn't do, one of those 6 lawmakers, again, in Mark Kelly, points out it's not only what they say you shouldn't do, it's what the law, sorry, I guess I should back up. It's what the law actually says they're not even allowed to do. The law says they shouldn't follow unlawful orders. I mean, maybe if Stephen A. Smith listened to the guy that he's yelling at, he would know that.
Happening right now. The Washington Post reporting that Secretary Hegseth gave an order to kill everybody on one of those suspected drug boats during the first strike in September. Are you calling for U.S. service members to actively disobey orders like those?
Well, if orders are illegal, not only do they not have to follow them, they are legally required not to follow them.
Do you think that constitutes an illegal order?
I think there needs to be an investigation, and I hope that the reporting is not accurate. I care so much about the United States Navy and those service members. This was an operation involving the most professional members of the military, U.S. Navy SEALs, who I revere. I hope and pray that this is not true. But there needs to be an investigation by the Inspector General. Pete Hegseth fired many of the inspectors general in DOD. But who's ever left needs to investigate it. We're going to investigate it. I sit on the Armed Services Committee. We're going to have an investigation. We're going to have a public hearing. We're going to put these folks under oath, and we're going to find out what happened. And then there needs to be accountability.
Let me ask you.
If orders are illegal, they don't only not have to not follow those orders, they are required legally to not follow those orders. Hey, Stephen A. Smith has some friends and family that had no issue with this. Hey, there's another military guy who has an issue with this. Which one should we believe? Just because you have someone that says one thing, and even if Mark Kelly just says something, you don't have to necessarily believe him either just because he was in the military. But there's this whole thing where there's evidence and reality and, the law that backs up one argument or another. We've decided to eliminate ourselves from evidence and reality-based arguments and just say Stephen A. Smith was screaming loud enough, so apparently Screaming A. Smith is right because he's so mad and he said 17 times, "How dare you? How dare you, Senator, with all due respect, as I continue to kiss Donald Trump's ass." I promise. I promise. This is the last one.
Senator Mark Kelly knows that. Trump is giving illegal orders. What are the illegal orders? How come you didn't tell us? Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Why do you think the investigation is going on? Why do you think Trump is all over Pete Hegseth, over the Department of War and the FBI with Kash Patel, and folks are looking into and probing what's going on and how can they get to Mark Kelly because they know he did something wrong. You crossed the damn line. You are an elected official in the nation's capital. We have a constitution. You got a problem, you go through the necessary process. Whether it's Hakeem Jeffries in the House, whether it's Schumer in the Senate, or anybody else. That is the point that's the process you're supposed to go to. You don't go in front of the cameras and give military officer or military personnel a directive to ignore their commander-in-chief, and you've given no evidence what his illegal orders were. And if you try to sit up there and say, oh, it was just alluding to a future reference to future situations, oh, so he's going to give you an illegal order in the future.
I'm not sure the date of that Yell Fest, But if it was before, as he mentioned how Trump's all over Hegseth, so maybe it wasn't before, which makes it even worse. If it was before, yes, they're talking about future illegal orders on top of the already illegal orders because we've already been blowing up people's ships in the middle of the Caribbean already. We know those are illegal orders. But Stephen A. Smith is nice and cuddly and snuggled up under Donald Trump's nutsack. So he's very happy to be there. It's all warm and cuddly for him. He enjoys it. So he has to find a way to scream and on about this, to try and avoid this guy having any kind of consequence for what it is that they're doing. I'm not going to play it, I promise. Do you guys remember Stephen A. Smith was on the wrong side when it came to Epstein files? He says, "Who cares about it? I don't care about it. It doesn't affect me. Is me or was my daughter ever sexually trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein? If not, why do I give a damn?" This is the kind of approach that he's had. That's who Stephen A. Smith is now. So, okay, I apologize. I hope any of you guys that hung on and listened to Stephen A. Smith understand I'm sorry about that. How about a palate cleanse? Let's have a palate cleanse. I've given Stephen A. Smith some time to talk about how much he's disappointed in Mark Kelly and how, he wants people to follow, like, the law. That's what has Stephen A. Smith upset. Let's listen to Mark Kelly actually talk about Pete Hegseth, because I think he breaks down who he is so well here. Just, I need to cleanse my brain and my ears of what I just heard.
If what seems to happen actually happened, I'm really worried about our service members. I was talking about this from the beginning of this operation, that the thing that I am most concerned about is the very difficult situations that this Secretary of Defense is going to put service members into. And it's because this guy is so unqualified for the job. I mean, think about this. He runs around on a stage talking about lethality and warrior ethos and killing people. We have the most competent, capable military this planet has ever seen by far. That's not the message that needs to come from the Secretary of Defense.
It's a point I kept making ever since he did it. Pete Hegseth came and talking about lethality, lethality, lethality. He kept saying it 3 times because he really wanted to drive the point home that he's all about killing people. Again, this all matches up. All this makes sense. All this goes with their normal narrative. This goes with what they said they were going to do. They're going to be killing people, and they're going to say that it's okay because they're fascists and they don't follow the rule of law. They definitely don't follow the Constitution. They listen to Donald Trump. So on top of them being unlawful and criminal and war criminals, on top of it, it's also stupid because, like I said, it's following Donald Trump. Last part here. Here's Mark Kelly. Last little bit that describes exactly who this Pete Hegseth really is, how he's running this Department of War, and why we shouldn't trust him. It's the reasons why I think our national security has taken a huge, significant hit.
And instead, he runs around on a stage like he's a 12-year-old playing Army. And it is ridiculous. It is embarrassing. And I can't imagine what our allies think of looking at that guy in this job, one of the most important jobs in our country. In my view, after the President of the United States, it is the next most important job. He is in the National Command Authority for Nuclear Weapons. And last night, he's putting out on the internet turtles with rocket-propelled grenades. Have you seen this? This is the Secretary of Defense. This is not a serious person. He should have been fired after Signalgate. And then every single day after that.
So if you listen to the 2 different approaches to military protocol between Mark Kelly and Stephen A. Smith, which one sounds like they know what they're talking about? Which one has the experience to know what they're talking about? And as he described Pete Hegseth there as a 12-year-old playing Army, which is probably one of the best descriptions I've heard. It really encapsulates the whole thing. Stephen A. Smith has decided to go that route and follow behind that guy and then rail on the guy who's a decorated veteran, who's an astronaut, and who's a United States senator, because Stephen A. needs some extra attention. And Stephen A. Smith apparently doesn't care how he gets it. He doesn't care that he looks like he's protecting pedophiles. It doesn't matter to Stephen A. Smith. It doesn't matter that he's protecting a war criminal. It doesn't matter to him. Stephen A. Smith had some yelling to do. So I'm glad he got that out of his system. I await his apology because he also tried to backtrack on the Epstein stuff too after he was busted and everyone talked about how stupid he sounds. I doubt it, but still, maybe in order to keep people listening to his ass. That's how he operates. That's it for me, you guys. Appreciate you being here. Happy Tuesday. I feel like the week is going to move by kind of fast. We already got Wednesday upcoming. We got some more developments potentially happening. Hey, somebody shoot me a message or something if you saw Caroline Levitt lying some more today. If she has yet, I'm looking. I should probably know what time she steps out because I'm sure they're asking her more questions about these revelations and all this stuff going down. So we'll check that out probably tomorrow. We'll have other things happening. I will continue to look for some good news. Maybe fun news. We'll try that route too. So until then, we'll catch you guys. Appreciate you, as I said before, but we'll see you guys on a Wednesday. Go tell folks over at TDR that I say hey, okay? Let them know I say hi, and I'm sorry. Kind of. See you guys.